appear we got an issue. Well, for one, the script writing process for the FNAF episode is taking more time than expected. Yeah, but gaming, and I noticed that you haven't made one review episode. And your name is James Plays Reviews, and you only occasionally game. Technically not, as that review episode says reacts in the title. Well, you, or rather we, given we're clones of you, have been reading the new Ultimate Spider-Man. And we were thinking you should review that. Otherwise, aside from making it a lore thing, it's kind of weird your name is James Plays Reviews when you only do one of those, and that's on occasion.
We have yet to appear in an episode of the Bros Season 2. Why is that?
Alright, hey guys, so if you saw the intro and the title, it's time. I've been a Spider-Man fan ever since I was young. I remember watching the first movies from a young age with my mom and dad. I don't recall where my brothers were during that, but I didn't care at the time. The moment I laid eyes on heroes like Spider-Man, Iron Man, Transformers, Captain America, Hulk, and Thor, I became hooked. Or as most people refer to me now, I became a nerd. However, as you can tell from the title of this video, we are only going to focus on Spider-Man today. Not just any Spider-Man though, a fairly recent one. A still ongoing one, an Ultimate Spider-Man. Alright, so let's start with the cover. I like the fact that it already has the classic red and blue on it, and the fact that he's posing in midair as he swings. I saw all the variant covers and gotta say I loved them, especially with all the references and callbacks. One thing I and most fans found out early on was in this universe, Peter Parker had evidently gone most of his life without being the masked web-swinging hero. Instead, he had been a normal high school lad who, given what I've been told, I guess met Mary Jane Watson early on in high school, likely having listened to Aunt May after going to whatever event he went to in the original comics. When he and MJ first met, they became boyfriend and girlfriend. Then their relationship lasted through high school, past college, and then boom, married life, having a boy named Richie, named after Peter's late father Richard Parker, and May, obviously after Peter's aunt. Quite a wholesome backstory we got, and we have yet to even enter the comic yet. Alright, so upon opening the book we immediately get some backstory / recap to fill us in on the events that happened before the book. And for those of you who also do not know, let me fill you in. Basically, a man known as the Maker, who is just Mr. Fantastic but an evil alternate universe version of him from the original Ultimate Universe, randomly decided one day that he wanted to go back in time and change the lore of the main Marvel Earth 616 universe. In the process, he either killed off, prevented them from becoming, or made work for him many heroes. However, during his rule on this new universe, Howard Stark discovered the evil goings on and so put a stop to them. Now his son, Tony Stark, also known as Iron Lad, is trying to fix stuff like this, but we'll get to that later. Okay, so we're already on the first panel, and I mean, look at this man. Look at him. Look. Just adopt me already, please. Ahem. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's carry on.
Will you adopt me?
What?
What?
Anyway, with that out of the way, back to the comic. So as you can tell from that slight montage just now, the comic begins with Peter Parker getting ready for his day. Getting dressed, putting his wedding ring on, which why was it off to begin with? Don't people sleep with their wedding rings on? That sort of thing. Then he meets with his kids Richie and Mayday and has some bacon. One thing to note about Richie and Mayday is this is the first version of either of these characters not to be referred to by their titular nicknames of Richie being short for Richard and Mayday being short for May. Before we move on, another thing to note about Richie is usually he is not Peter and MJ's kid but Peter and his usually dying love interest Gwen's child that they have in the House of M universe. However, that is a whole other can of worms and we're only here to talk about Ultimate Spider-Man, not House of M Spider-Man. Anyway, Peter gets some coffee and meets with MJ. Hang on a minute, I have to resist the urge to make another adopt me joke. Anyway, getting back into it, MJ and Peter discuss Peter's lack of ability to get sleep. MJ guesses the reason he can't sleep is because it is the funeral for the terrorist attack blamed on Tony Stark in Ultimate Universe #1, which he agrees with. Meanwhile, Mayday grabs a hold of a strange circle-like object and grabs it from her. MJ asks Peter if he wants to discuss some of his issues and Peter agrees but only after he gets work done because he has a job to do. Peter then waves bye to his family and heads to his job at the Daily Bugle. One shocking thing that everyone learned when this issue came out is instead of Peter being an intern to J. Jonah Jameson, he is instead like a son figure to the man, and Jonah and Uncle Ben are like brothers. Even finding out something like that blew me away. Both Ben and Jonah in the issue act like father figures towards Peter, Jonah making sure he's in the right attire and Ben providing life advice. Peter worries about Ben due to him not talking much after May died during the terrorist attack. However, Ben reminds Peter how he was after his parents died and the two agree it's normal to feel the way they feel after all that has happened. Peter and his family then head to the funeral which held by Matt Murdock. Like I straight up shouted Daredevil when I saw that Matt Murdock was a priest in this universe. Part of me wonders if, say, Iron Lad manages to revert this universe back to semi-normal, how Tony is gonna get Matt Murdock to become a Batman-style vigilante who breaks fingers like they were twigs. Anyway, Matt gives a eulogy where he tries to help people move on and teaching them that while their family and friends are gone and heaven is likely more populated than they would prefer, that they need to move on. Not to forget those that they lost, but to keep them in their hearts. He then shifts things over to Harry Osborn, who gives a more ominous eulogy talking about the time he played catch with his father. Harry swears to help people get vengeance for those who were taken from them. Peter and MJ discuss Harry's eulogy and it's revealed that Peter and Harry aren't friends in this universe, and aside from Uncle Ben at one point interviewing Harry's father Norman, the only connection Peter has to him is the fact that MJ at one point met him. Which, given that the new Ultimate Universe is supposed to be a split of Earth 616 splitting off around the 60s according to a history map 1963 in particular, I wonder if Peter went to a different college or something. After the funeral, Peter heads back to work with Ben. Upon arriving, they see Jonah raging inside a meeting room before yelling, "I quit." As he walks out, curious Ben asks what was going on, and Robbie Robertson informs him that some higher-ups are displeased with how thorough their coverage is and therefore wants to change their direction. Ben asks how he should feel about this direction, to which it is revealed the higher-up, so to speak, is Wilson Fisk, who tells Ben he should feel happy at his good fortune, as with Jonah quitting Ben gets a promotion. However, rather than feel how Fisk is telling him to feel, Ben quits as well, and Ben and Jonah give one another sly smirks. Wilson and his assistant, later revealed to apparently be Bullseye, get into the car only to be attacked by the Green Goblin. Now, upon seeing the Goblin, people immediately assumed it was Harry, given Norman is dead. I don't know if Marvel hoped people would assume that, but given all the people saying it was Harry for issue 2, which we will get to in a moment, they released a variant cover that pretty much confirmed Harry as the Goblin. At the bar with no name, which is literally the bar's name, so it should be called the bar that has no name yet is named. Ben and Jonah drink as they think on what to do next. Ben thinks they should start their own news business, which Jonah isn't sure of. However, Ben brings up the fact that neither of them are really good at anything else. Jonah reminds Ben that the news is dirty business, but Ben decides they can make things right by agreeing to have their news business solely about telling the truth. Jonah finds the irony in that hilarious and laughs, and so him and Ben agree to, rather than to tell the truth, to not lie. Peter then arrives and tells Ben and Jonah the result of their actions. Fortunately for Peter, at least, he managed to keep his job after this, and Robbie has taken over for Ben and Jonah. Jonah offers to hire them for their new reporting business, but given the two have one yet to start and two have no money, Peter turns them down. Jonah lets Peter and Ben talk, but before leaving suggests Peter thinks it over. When alone, Peter asks Ben why he did what he did and how he could question Ben on how he can blow up his entire life one moment and then start another the next. Ben, in a more complicated fashion, says that he has no responsibilities as of current. His wife is dead, Peter is grown up with a family, and he doesn't feel like making compromises anymore just because someone wants him to. Therefore, in his eyes, it was an easy decision. Peter then begins disclosing his problem, which Ben briefly mistakes for Peter being conflicted on joining them. However, Peter quickly corrects him. Peter informs Ben that his whole life he felt as though something was missing and that he now knows what it was. To which Ben tells Peter that if he feels as though something has got to change, then to change it. Sure, there will be consequences, but what's life without feeling complete? Later that night, Peter puts his kids down for bed. Mayday appears to be the easiest. Richie, however, is busy reading a book, The Tale of Two Cities, which is high above his grade level judging by his age and appearance. Peter implies that Richie is a bookworm, to which Richie reminds Peter where he gets his bookworm tendencies from. With that reminder, Peter allows Richie to finish the chapter and then has a talk with MJ. He starts by telling her that Ben and Jonah quit the Bugle and then gets down to the nitty-gritty by telling MJ he needs a change. At first, MJ thinks he's referring to careers and makes it clear she'd fully support him. Peter, however, corrects her and tells her that what he means is that he needs a personal change. MJ then asks the question that scared everyone in the Spider-Man fandom.
No, 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 no! Wait. Hey, wait!
I mean, come on, we just met this family and you're seemingly gonna break them up right now. Fortunately, though, Peter says the correct answer and MJ heads off to bed, but not without saying the iconic line to Peter to get him to do what he needs to. Peter then heads outside and we flash back to the previous night where Peter received a hologram message from Tony Stark, aka Iron Lad. Iron Lad informs Peter of his and his friends' assassination attempt by the Maker's Council. Iron Lad informs Peter of his true future and how it was stolen from him by the Maker. He also informs Peter of his goals. He tells Peter that if his plan works, he should return to the Earth with its heroes returned and states that he has hope Peter is among them. Tony tells Peter that he was supposed to be among the world's greatest heroes, but that it was stolen from him, and asks if he wants his life back. Given it's a hologram, however, it can't hear Peter's answer. Before we move on, however, there's one issue I want to bring up. This is not confirmed true, but Peter is seemingly younger than Tony. Now, I know this an alternate universe and all, but this is a serious continuity error here. The new Ultimate Universe is supposed to split off from Earth 616 sometime in the 60s, so unless the Maker somehow convinced Howard not to have a child with his wife, how is Peter older? Oh, wait a minute, I just remembered in the main universe, Tony wasn't even born to Howard Stark, so maybe the Hydra agent and Tony's birth mother had Tony later on in life. Anyway, let's move on. When asked if he wants his destiny back, Peter thinks back on his friends and family. He thinks back on Ben's fatherly advice and MJ's caring advice as a wife. He takes their advice as a yes and decides he wants it and lets the spider bite him. And then holy cow, we get this cool scene of Peter in his Spider-Man suit. Like what a way to end an issue. I swear if this were a TV show or movie we'd have some sort of awe-inspiring action music. Now before we move on, you know those channels that do the whole only a small percentage of you are subscribed? Yeah, I find those annoying too. What did you think I was gonna pull a move like that? Not lol. Anyway, onto the cover. Like the first one, it looks good. Amazing. In fact, it has Goblin on the cover and Peter looking up. It doesn't tell you what to make with it and leaves a lot to the imagination. So, the issue starts with Peter web slinging when we cut to a debate between Mayday and Richie. Richie doesn't think Spider-Man is real and thinks he's probably Photoshop or CGI. Meanwhile, Mayday thinks he's real and decides to ask her father about it. Peter, not wanting to reveal his secret identity yet, simply reminds Mayday about her belief in unicorns and asks why she can't just ignore Richie this time. Mayday then tells Peter it's because she finds Spider-Man scary, at which point Peter switches sides and tells Mayday to believe Richie and tells her Spider-Man should be nothing to be scared of. MJ overhears and asks what everyone is talking about, to which Peter sums it up as being afraid of Photoshop, in which MJ jokes that she's afraid of it too. MJ then heads out the door to deal with clients, but then notices Peter's muscles and asks if he's been working out. To continue hiding his secret, he implies that he has. Time skip to nighttime and Peter notices changes about himself. He's strong, he's fast, he's increasingly hungry, he barely needs sleep anymore, he can sense things before they happen or items before they come into view. However, he's not great at landings, but he has noticed that he's very durable. At a spa, Jonah tells Ben that for the past few years he's had nothing but coffee for breakfast. He then asks Ben if it's unhealthy. Ben answers with a question of his own. Is Jonah gonna stop if he says yes? Jonah of course tells him he won't, so Ben tells him that it is healthy, to which Jonah acts as if he never asked the beforehand question, to Ben's annoyance. The two then talk about the attempt on Fisk's life and come to a few conclusions. The attack will never become public knowledge under Fisk's watch. Spider-Man is being used a distraction story just in case, and Peter didn't give them pictures for the story because they are 1. Not open yet, and 2. He doesn't work for them. After these conclusions, they decide to get started on work despite not yet even having a name for their business. Meanwhile, Peter as Spider-Man is out swinging and is thinking about what he should do. Should he try to be the person he was meant to be? Because if so, wouldn't that mean starting from square one? While thinking about this, he sees Shocker and confronts him. Shocker asks who he is and Peter stupidly discusses his internal discussion with the villain. Shocker uses this to his advantage and pretends to change his mind about robbing the bank. Peter, being gullible and new to the job, falls for it and ends up getting electrocuted into a dumpster as Shocker retreats. Peter returns home and scolds himself for falling for such an obvious lie. He then sits down to eat a tub of ice cream only to see Mayday looking at him and about to cry out of fear. Peter quickly stops her from waking everyone up and reveals his secret identity to her. Which, I gotta say, that did not take long. According to the wiki, it's been a month since Peter got his powers. From my point of view, I thought it had maybe been a couple days, but I guess the events of this comic take place on the day they are released. Either way, even Earth 616 Peter was better at keeping his identity a secret. Anyway, Peter bribes Mayday with some ice cream into not revealing his secret identity, and they have a wholesome moment where they discuss on how to turn Peter's costume into a less scary one. Meanwhile, Captain Britain, who is French in this universe. For people wondering why, basically the Maker wiped out the United Kingdom in this universe, so Great Britain no longer exists as a whole, meaning even a French person can become Captain Britain. Anyway, back to the story. Captain Britain discusses his dislike of seeing Spider-Man in the news and demands an explanation from Wilson Fisk. Fisk simply explains that due to being attacked as of recent by the Green Goblin, he has given the people a distraction story to keep them off his back. Captain Britain dislikes this as he believes Kingpin should give the people no explanation and make them like it. He makes a comment about playing king, to which Fisk corrects him and states that he isn't playing king but is in fact a king. Captain Britain orders that in that case he act like one. Back with Peter, he sits on a ledge where he quickly texts MJ to ask how things are going. She informs him and shows him that things are going as usual and asks when he'll be home. He tells her he will be there soon and she tells him to get some sleep. Peter jokingly asks what sleep is. Peter sees Shocker again and confronts him once more. Still mad about getting electrocuted, he and Shocker fight and he breaks some of Shocker's ribs, which he apologizes for. Shocker quickly comes up with a sub-story saying that his wife has cancer and that's why he's doing this. Peter Gullible once again believes him for a moment but realizes too late it was a lie and once again is electrocuted into a dumpster. Shocker retreats and the Green Goblin witnesses this. Peter returns home once more and scolds himself for falling for the same trick twice, revealing his identity to and scaring Mayday. He considers hanging up the costume until he sees a wholesome drawing from Mayday encouraging him to keep going. One thing I gotta say about this wholesome moment is, see what you did, Marvel. You took this from us. How could you? Stupid Mephisto and his one more day. Ahem, now with that out of the way. So, now for my final thoughts on these two issues. They are honestly amazing. The way they change up the lore and how you don't need too much to know the whole story. If people don't hop on the bandwagon fast enough, eventually it is gonna contain too much lore for people to catch up on, but still it's nice to see this. I've had some friends tell me that Marvel lore is much too complicated and that they prefer DC, which has much more complicated lore, so I don't know what they are talking about there, or anime. Now, while I agree that Marvel lore is complicated, that's why I don't go to the beginning, I just hop in at the beginning of the current story. All I need to know is that Peter Parker was bitten by a radioactive spider, became Spider-Man, Uncle Ben died, and he learned with great power comes great responsibility. However, in this story that totally gets flipped on its head. Peter didn't gain his abilities at 16 years old like on Earth 616. He gained them while getting into middle-aged. Now, not many people hate on this story. There is a small some who do, but still not many. Their complaints basically amount to that this version of Peter does not feel like regular Peter Parker. Which I agree with it, but my argument back is that really such a bad thing? There are so many adaptations of Peter Parker / Spider-Man out there and they are usually all the same with some rare different ones sprinkled in between. Here, we're given both fanservice seeing Peter married to MJ and having 2 kids, and we get to see Spider-Man's origin story in a whole new light. I don't know about you, but for me and for others it's refreshing to see a new take. Now, this may be a little early for me to do, but for the 2 comics we got, I'm gonna give this a 10 out of 10.